How can sports make you smarter? Well, it depends on what you think smart means, but they can help you learn better and faster, as well as increase your capacity to learn by serving as gateways to neuroplasticity. Now, what is neuroplasticity? Well, let's just look at the word. Neuro refers to neurons, or the nerve cells in your brain and your nervous system, and plasticity here is referring not to actual plastic, but to those cells' malleability or ability to change. Each cell, especially your nerve cells, consists of a cell body that houses the mitochondria, the DNA, produces all the neurotransmitters, as well as axons or dendrites, which are just these little wires that extend out from the cell body and allow the neuron to communicate with other cells through electrochemical signals, which are just electrical signals that your body generates through endogenous chemicals. Your body's an amazing thing. Now, I haven't formally studied this stuff since college, but my understanding is that the change of neuroplasticity occurs not on the level so much of individual cells, but across your neural circuitry, which basically means that your neurons will change how they're arranged and how they communicate with each other throughout your brain and your nervous system. So as Professor Huberman puts it, neuroplasticity is your brain and nervous system's ability to change, hopefully adaptively, in response to stimuli. Now, neuroplasticity can refer to a change in how we think, our emotional response to situations, the unlearning of things, particularly emotional responses, and most relevant to today's discussion, the learning of new information, skills, etc. Now, as human beings, like most animals, definitely mammals as I understand it, all of our brains are extremely plastic or malleable, able to learn and retain new information early in life. Up until about 25 years old, we as human beings can learn things passively, like learning a new language as a baby. You don't really have to try to, you're just exposed to it and you learn it passively. Now after 25, we can still learn new things, but the state of plasticity is much more difficult to enter. Acquiring new skills, learning new information, past 25 requires many cycles of deliberate, focused attention on the thing you're trying to learn, followed by periods of deep rest, like sleep or naps, or yoga nidra, but sleep is the best. Now, somewhat counterintuitively to me, neuroplasticity is harder to enter as an adult, but one of the best ways to enter it is to just play. That's right, basically just fuck around and find out. So now let's look at play and see why it's such a powerful gateway to neuroplasticity. The Huberman Lab did an incredible episode, like all of their episodes, titled Using Play to Rewire Your Brain. Now, play can broadly be defined as low stakes competition. It's important for the activity or the competition to be low stakes because one mechanism of neuroplasticity is contingency testing. I really struggle saying that word. Contingency testing, basically outcome testing. While you're playing, you're constantly considering and trying to predict different outcomes for the play and the game. And that's basically what sports are. If you think about it, it's an ongoing evaluation of, if I do A, he could do B or C, maybe D. If he does B, I'll do this. If he does C, I'll do that. But oh shit, he did E. Now I can do X, Y, Z, to which he'll do elemental P, and so on and so forth. You see, you're constantly engaging in non-linear thinking. Linear thinking would be if A, then B, if B, then C. Sports aren't like that. And this forces your prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for like higher cognition and executive planning, to contend with way more possibilities or outcomes, what they call algorithms, than it's used to. This puts it in a state of discomfort, which is the doorway to neuroplasticity. Like any physiological adaptation, it's caused by discomfort. Like working out, you have to be tired, your muscles have to hurt in the right way in order to engage growth and hypertrophy. Different regions of your brain release different neurotransmitters, including the catecholamines, which are epinephrine or adrenaline, norepinephrine and dopamine, as well as acetylcholine and endogenous opioids. This puts your brain in a plastic or malleable state. And once in this state, your brain releases more chemicals such as BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, and other growth factors or proteins that trigger the actual rewiring of your neural circuitry, allowing your brain to expand and change. Now this brings us to a very important point, which is that neuroplasticity is not domain specific, meaning that play can be used to restructure your nervous system for many activities, not just the activity that you're playing in. You can use play to enhance the learning of cognitive information, such as a new language or a new instrument or a new subject at school or in work. You could also use it to learn or unlearn emotional responses, etc., etc. Now, Jiu Jitsu is one of the most potent examples I could think of because it's a constant game of if I do this, he'll do that, or this or that, which sets me up for that. For example, in competition, every match starts on your feet. So he'd be standing there like, all right, I want to take him down. I can go for a double leg, but that opens me up to him getting me in the guillotine, which could be okay. I could let him do that. I could just finish the takedown, maybe get him in a Von Flue choke. Or let him get the guillotine, take him down, get to side control, get out of the guillotine, get him in something else. Or I could fake the takedown, go for an arm drag, but then that might set me up to getting fucking judo tossed if the dude knows judo. Or maybe I should do none of that and just pull guard, but then he could pass my guard, so I gotta be very careful in how I do that. It never ends. Now, I'm a white belt, so I think most white belts would agree with me that when you go with the higher level belt, everything feels like a trap. Higher belts will literally let you get them in a submission just to make one move, and then you're getting an arm bar and you're getting choked out. Like, it always ends in a trap, and there's an infinite amount of paths that they could take to choke you out. It's a crazy and fun sport. Now, this contingency testing or outcome testing mechanism is particularly interesting because it's just that play is evolutionarily hardwired into our nervous system. There's a huge evolutionary advantage to organisms being able to test out different rules and outcomes in a low stakes environment versus in the middle of a hunt or in a battle where it's literally life and death. Professor Huberman also points out that play is homeostatically regulated. Now, homeostasis is this process. It's a dynamic process in your body or within another organism or system where that system is able to maintain a stable internal state despite and in response to changes in the external environment. So what that means for play is that if you're kept from playing for too long, you'll play more once you're allowed to play again. Now, while it's unclear whether or not evolution is conscious, I have a feeling that it is. I hope to prove that one day, but we'll see. But we could say, I believe Huberman might have actually said it in this way, so it'd be a quote, that evolution deemed play important enough to put under our autonomic or our involuntary control. Now, one thing I am unclear about is the relationship of our autonomic nervous system to our prefrontal cortex and other brain regions. I understand that the release of endogenous opioids from the PAG to the prefrontal cortex aids in this contingency testing, this outcome testing. But why can we consciously enter and exit states of play and plan to do so in the future? Like, why can we consciously use this autonomic function to trigger malleability in the very brain regions responsible for executive functioning? Professor Huberman, if you see this is one of the many questions that episode sparked. So thank you, it was an incredible episode. Another, maybe separate, but definitely interrelated mechanism by which play triggers neuroplasticity is by providing an arena for role playing in which you can explore new ways of being, new ways of navigating the rules of a particular system, and explore nuanced relationships with yourself as well as with other people in that social system. So for example, you get to explore things like who's a cheater, who gives up easy, who's resilient, who's good to have on your team, and who's a complete fucking liability. In the same episode, Huberman gives a great analysis of an equally great research paper titled, Is Chess a Game or a Reflection of a Child's Inner World? Now, the study of this paper describes how chess can help children better navigate life by drawing parallels between the chess game and life outside of the game. Each chess piece has different roles, different rules, and different ways of interacting within the larger game. And much like contingency testing, this provides a low-stakes arena for exploring multiple roles for different characters. My understanding of it was that chess is different from video games or other sports where you have the same avatar, where you're always you, because each chess piece is essentially like a different person, a different character that you have to embody. And I wonder if the same is true for Jiu Jitsu, because again, more than any other sport I've come across, Jiu Jitsu forces you to dynamically take on different roles within each role, within each game. And these roles aren't always black and white. They're usually shades of gray. If you want to put it in terms of offense and defense, you can switch from a dominant offensive position to being fucked and totally in the defensive in a split second. For example, if let's say you have someone's back, that's a pretty offensive, dominant position because you have a lot of different chokes and submissions that you can put them in, and they have few, if any, that they can do to you. But in a split second, if they're able to just spin so that their body is now chest to chest with you, you're in a much less dominant position. They're still in your guard, so you have more control, I guess, than they do. But if they pass that, now you're on your back and you're in side control and mount, and you're totally on the defensive. And I don't fully understand what's going on, but when I watch higher belts, like black belts roll, it looks like most of the match is spent in gray areas between offense and defense. Like someone will submit their opponent while they're in half guard or quarter guard or something else. One of my training partners, Justice, won a tournament because this dude tried to take him down. So Justice was in a totally defensive position, about to get taken down, but in the air while he was getting taken down. He got to do it in like an inverted, I think it's called, armbar, some type of armbar. And by the time he hit the ground, the dude was tapping and Justice had won. So there's all these different gray areas. One final idea that the Huberman episode and this chess paper has me pondering is the idea that Jiu Jitsu is life and what that means. So the chess study was partly informed by something this chess grandmaster Anatoly Karpov, sorry for mispronouncing that, said that chess is life. And you hear that all the time with different sports. Chess is life, jiu-jitsu is life. What he meant is that chess is everything. It's an art, a science, and a sport. And Professor Huberman points out that when people say chess is life, it's not just a reflection of their passion for chess, meaning that chess is their entire life, like all they care about. But recent scientific research, such as this study, shows that games like these are life and that they're a microcosm for life. The act of doing these art forms is, I believe this is a quote, I believe Huberman actually said it like this, a portal through which you can explore life through many different lenses. And the same is true for Jiu-Jitsu. Sports are basically just this really cool AI VR, but not AI, it's natural intelligence. It's natural intelligence VR where you can live different lives. It's like the Roy game at Blitz and Chips and Rick and Morty. But it's real. One of the authors of this paper, Gokhan Goons, again, sorry for mispronouncing that, he coined this term called personal play identity, which very briefly is this 4-dimensional identity that's formed in early adolescence, I believe 10 to 14 years old, and it's a critical inflection point for your later development because it's a strong predictor for how and why you show up to different endeavors as an adult. So to put that another way, the identity you form as a kid, exploring different outcomes and roles and rules in games, carries over into non-play scenarios and into your adult life. So this probably explains why martial artists are usually such cool people. All right, so I know that was long. We're not planning on doing a lot of content where it's just me talking at you like this. So if you hung in there, I appreciate you. And I'm just gonna briefly recap some of the key takeaways because they're really cool. So first, let's remember that play is one of the most powerful portals to neuroplasticity. Why is that? Well, it leverages your own physiology and these endogenous mechanisms that you already have and that have been honed by millions of years of evolution. The best way to engage neuroplasticity is to engage in novel forms of movement. So just go out and try a new sport or a new dance that requires non-linear dynamic movement, meaning lateral and angled movements and jumping and ducking and leaping and rolling. Which is why I think Jiu Jitsu is so powerful because you're constantly doing that. You're constantly changing your orientation to gravity. Because of the way your vestibular system communicates with your cerebellum, the mini brain, and like the back of your brain to bring together visual information, changing your orientation to gravity is a strong stimulus for neuroplasticity. And by generating and dynamically exploring, I guess you could say, different movement patterns, different roles, and different possible outcomes in a low stakes environment, you put your nervous system in a state of discomfort to which it responds by releasing certain neurotransmitters that allow you to consciously rewire your nervous system. It's incredible. And playing doesn't just engage neuroplasticity for the thing you're playing in, it expands the number of possible ways your brain can change in general throughout life. Now, it's not like you just play a game once and you're plastic forever. It's an ongoing thing you have to maintain, but it expands the possibilities. Playing teaches you how to navigate gray areas and move forward when the future is unclear, which I'm learning is an absolutely essential skill to have as an adult. Learning to play properly can enhance your ability to focus and optimize performance. Another lesson that I learned the hard way is that a state of playfulness allows you to perform your best. All this perfectionism and all that shit, not nearly as good as just playing around, just have fun with stuff, literally. Science explains why this is pharmacologically, but if you think about it just logically, it makes sense. You can't engage in flexible thinking if you're rigidly attached to the outcome. That might be quoting Huberman as well. I'm sorry, I kind of just listened to the podcast and then outlined some points and got on here and talked. So if I quote anything, it's from the podcast, which I'll put in the notes. But herein lies a very powerful and wise life lesson that we can learn from sports. It's important and necessary to play, and to the greatest extent possible, to detach the doing of the activity with the outcome. So try to be an autotelic as much as you can. Huberman suggests that if you hit a plateau in performance, just play in ways that aren't attached to the outcome. Literally just have fun. Try things you normally wouldn't, and you'll discover things you normally wouldn't have. Huberman brought up another example that I love because Matthew McConaughey would do the same thing. But he points out that play is so important that Richard Feynman, who was a Nobel laureate, he worked on the Manhattan Project and made pivotal contributions to quantum mechanics. All right, he's a certified genius. He would also play the bongos naked on the roof of Caltech. This dude wrote how he consciously made an effort to preserve his playfulness as he got older because it allowed him to see the world in unique ways and make discoveries in his field and evolve his relationship to himself and to life overall that he wouldn't be able to otherwise. And finally, Jiu Jitsu, in addition to being an extremely potent gateway to neuroplasticity, again illustrates how sports are so much more than just physical activities. As we saw with surfing and capoeira, there's spiritual practices and windows into history and culture. And as we see now, they're windows into ourselves. They're tools through which we can be the architect of our own nervous system. It's incredible. All you gotta do is fuck around and find out.